Questions were now beginning to be asked. Didn't the poverty-stricken masses have a better call on the resources of the country? Could the country afford the empire and the fleet which held it together? If it was a question of priorities, what should come first? Britain in 1900 was still the major workshop of the world. Cotton, coal, shipbuilding, iron and steel, the same old industries which had built up Britain's position in the early 19th century, were the basis of this success and exported all over the world. Fears of change were scorned.
The American bicycle was driven off the market. The American boot has lost its hold. The British clock has recaptured its market. The motor trade has grown up and is pushing sales abroad. Textiles, coal, iron and steel are more prosperous than ever before.
But there were signs for concern. As early as the 1890s, both Germany and the United States exceeded Britain's steel production. And although Britain's rate of economic growth was faster than ever, it could not prevent her being overtaken by countries with greater natural resources.
As the first industrial nation, Britain was bound to be caught up by other countries. She was still producing the goods of the first industrial revolution, things like cotton textiles, which other countries could very easily produce once they began to industrialize themselves. Britain was also exporting the know-how and the expertise, which would allow them to catch her up. British machinery was allowing her rivals to outbid her in the industrial race. But there were more fundamental reasons. Britain was beginning to suffer from a lack of entrepreneurship. She was beginning to lack the drive and energy which had made the first industrial revolution. Businessmen wanted their sons to become gentlemen. They were sending them into the city and into the professions, rather than back into the factories. Britain's unchallenged industrial supremacy was now a thing of the past. Relative decline had really now begun.
Edwardian society was very structured, and the divisions between the classes were deep and wide-ranging. Railway trains had 3 classes, churches different pews, pubs different bars. Nowhere were these divisions more keenly felt than in the middle classes. For the growing number of non-manual employees who found themselves at the bottom of this class, it was very important to keep up appearances.
Its male population is engaged in all its working hours in small, crowded offices under artificial light, doing immense sums, adding up other men's accounts, writing other men's letters. It is sucked into the city at daybreak and scattered again as darkness falls. It finds itself towards evening in its own territory, in the miles and miles of little red houses, in little silent streets, in number defying imagination. A clerk lives an entirely different life from an artisan, marries a different kind of wife, has different ideas, different possibilities, and different limitations. It is not by any means only a question of clothes, of the wearing or not wearing of a white shirt every day, but of the differences which invade every department of life, and at every turn affect the family budget.
The most important dividing line between the middle and working classes was the keeping of a living-in servant. Even the most modest home strove to have at least one.
My wife Carrie and I have just been a week in our new house, the Laurels, Brickfield Terrace, Holloway. A nice 6-roomed residence, not counting the basement, with a front breakfast parlour. After my work in the city, I like to be at home. What's the good of a home if you are never in it? Home, sweet home. That's my motto.
Lloyd George's People's Budget was part of his radical policy of taxing the rich to help the poor. This began a big debate on whether it was the state's responsibility to help the poor.
There are millions of people in this country enduring year after year the torture of living while lacking a sufficiency of the bare essentials of life. And all this exists amid a splendid plenty which pours into a land so wealthy that it can afford to lend out of its spare riches millions to less well-endowed lands in other parts of the world.
In spite of severe opposition, the Liberals pushed through a whole series of social reforms: old age pensions, labour exchanges, and a National Insurance Act, giving sickness and unemployment benefits to thousands of workers. But as the Edwardian years played themselves out, the Liberals were unable to stop mounting trouble. King Edward was dead, but the age he gave his name to had a few more years to run before it vanished in August 1914. A golden age?
Morning, Friday the 12th of November it is, and let's get it started now on BBC Two with CBeebies and The Pingu Show.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Get set, go! Hurry, 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 don't shake a leg, jump